Tonight, we will explore the critical issue of campaign financing and its effects on electoral integrity and democratic governance in Nigeria. We'll examine how current regulations influence the fairness of elections and the overall quality of our democracy. My name is Ezenwa Agu, your uncle. This program is aimed to foster inclusive dialogue among citizens from varied backgrounds concerning electoral reform and constitutional amendments. It's also to enhance public understanding and awareness regarding electoral reform and possibly compile and present citizen-derived recommendations to the National Assembly and INEC for consideration. This program is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from the MacArthur Foundation. Campaign financing in Nigeria is regulated by the Electoral Act, plays a critical role in shaping the integrity of elections and the quality of democratic governance. The Act sets limits on contributions and expenditures, mandates transparency through disclosure requirements, and imposes penalties for violations. However, enforcement challenges, lack of transparency, and the significant influence of wealthy donors undermine these regulations. These issues contribute to the electoral outcomes that often reflect the interest of the few rather than the will of the broader electorate, thereby weakening democratic governance. Despite the Act's provisions, the pervasive role of money in Nigerian politics continues to raise concerns about political equality and fairness. To enhance the effectiveness of campaign finance regulations, there is a need for stronger enforcement mechanisms, improved transparency, and potentially expanding public funding to level the playing field for all candidates. Addressing these challenges is essential for ensuring Nigeria's elections are free, fair, truly representative of the people's voice. Joining us today is Mr. Jide Ojo, a development consultant, author, and public affairs analyst with over 25 years of experience in governance and development. Jide holds a degree in political science from the University of Lagos and Ibadan and has worked with international organizations like the UNDP and IFES. Jide is a trained bridge facilitator and observed elections in many countries, including Ghana, US, Egypt, just to mention a few. He has authored over 400 published commentaries in Nigeria's newspapers, making him a leading voice in electoral and governance issues. I'm particularly excited to have Jide share these insights with us today. You're welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Happy Sunday to everyone listening.
Your journey in the development space is exciting. Can you take us through just a bit of what it's been like for you?
Okay. I started this development work in 1998, ahead of the 1999 transition. And from there on, in Ibadan, then Lagos, then Abuja. I never really knew I was going to earn my living in the development sector. Even while I was in school, I thought I was going to end up being a journalist. So that's what everybody had pigeonholed me to, because I started writing in 1990. So I've put in 34 years into the media space or media advocacy. So it was natural for everybody to think, oh, Jide is just going to be a journalist on graduation. But it didn't work out that way. I tried getting a space, but all I was getting at that point in time, 98, 99, 2000, was freelancing. So nobody was ready to give me full-time employment in the media space.
Yeah.
So they just say, okay, you can cover news for us, and then based on the number of news stories we published from your submissions, you get a commission. And I did that a couple of times for the Guardian newspaper in Oyo State. And I thought that it wasn't profitable. With a master's degree, why should I be subject to that kind of experience? So I pulled out, and someone influenced my going into the media, into the development sector. A friend of mine who was working with an NGO in University of Ibadan called Univa, Suberi Oluwasegun Joseph, was the one that actually lured me into this. He asked me to go and represent them. Univa, University Village Association, that was the name of the NGO, represent them at a workshop and get them a report. So I got fascinated. That was at Kakanfoyin. I was there for 1 week, Enable project, which was organized by SEPA Nigeria. And from there I developed interest, but I was just like, again, freelancing at that level before eventually I picked full-time employment in the development sector, worked with Association of Nigerian Authors in Lagos for 2 years, then left to work with Electoral Reofrm Network in Abuja,
yeah.
And then from there from IFES, UNDP, and then back to IFES, and then I've been working as a full-time consultant in the last 10 years.
There's a reason why I wanted you to go through this journey, and it shows that you are now even more than a journalist. You have many books to your credit.
Yeah, 3 books actually.
Yes, 3 is many now. So your work in IFES significantly, and I think I followed you for a long time. I know that there are not many authorities in campaign financing in the country, as with the rich experience and knowledge that you have. What really do you think? What do you think money? How does money impact outcomes in elections?
Interestingly, when I joined IFES in 2005, one of the portfolios I was meant to handle was the party finance portfolio, political party finance portfolio. And IFES was the first international non-governmental organization that was working collaboratively with INEC, and I think we published the first political party finance handbook manual for political parties at that time in 2005 or 2006. So I've been working since that 2005 on issue of campaign finance, and I can tell you for free that first, we need to establish one fact that you can't do politics without money. Generally speaking, political party finance, you need money to run even party offices, administration. You can't do away with that money. And then when it comes to contesting election, you also have to spend a lot of resources. But Nigeria happens to be one of the very few countries that have campaign finance regulation, which is a very robust. In fact, it was appraised as the best in Africa, because it gives you campaign finance ceilings, not only ceiling for expenditure, but also ceiling for income, the kind of income you can take. It forbids, for instance, that you cannot receive money from foreign, you can't receive foreign donations on paper. And let's take it to be on paper, because today I see a lot of APC USA, APC Journey, and all of that. But Section 225 of the Constitution actually forbids, any foreign donation, whether by organizations, individuals, or whatever. So it's a very robust regulation, but these regulations are observed in breach. Again, because there is a lack of technical manpower on the part of the regulator, which is INEC, high level of turnover of staff whose capacity has been built to be able to do this. We will regularly get either posted out or moved to other departments. But the question wasn't that, I know. The question was influence of money in our politics. And that's why I laid the preamble that you can't do politics without money. It's not the sole determinant of electoral victory, but to say that you will not spend money, as it's popularly said, there's no free lunch in Freetown. Even if the entire resources is not coming from you, somebody is paying the bills. For instance, if I donate my building, my house, as your campaign office, if you have to pay for it, that's huge.
You have to value it.
You have to value the amount. Yeah. If I put my car on your campaign trail and I'm fueling it, it's also part of the resources I'm bringing to bear on your campaign. And so many others, support groups and all of that. So the money influence a lot in our politics. And that's why people of low income or people who do not have
we're going to get there.
social capital find it extremely difficult.
Yeah, we're going to get there. I want you to look at the issue of sanctions. Because, yes, you talked about low capacity within the EMB to be able to regulate campaign financing. But it's a matter of law. You talked about, say, this USA, that USA. But I know a presidential candidate who addressed a press conference and admitted to taking money from foreign donation. And the law says he should warehouse it. He said he transferred it to the campaigns, to his campaigns. And I was expecting that the security agencies, if they have any understanding of what that law says, both in the Constitution section 225 that you talked about and the Electoral Act, should have been able to kick in. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's the ideal. But do we build the capacity of the law enforcement agents? Were their capacity built? Do they have understanding of what the law says? Who is supposed to kickstart that process? That is INEC. INEC is the regulator here. INEC is the one that can kickstart and say, we are interested in knowing how you spend that money. Because even the money is meant to be forfeited to INEC. It's not say CBN. You don't
it's
just
warehoused in
it's
INEC.
where it's supposed to be warehoused in INEC. Yeah. So the director of election and party monitoring of INEC, if he or she were to be alive to his or her responsibility and she comes across that kind of news, she's supposed to initiate a memo through the chairman, through the office of the chairman, to say, according to social law, you are in breach of this law and we would like to have you, investigated. So you call in the EFCC, you call in the police to come and do the investigation. As you rightly know, INEC does not have power to investigate, does not have power to arrest, they only have power to prosecute. And you cannot prosecute by just picking somebody up and then charging him to court.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I'm getting, I think we've shared some of these thoughts elsewhere. What the Police Act, gives the police the power to enforce all laws.
Yes.
And sometimes I might be wrong, and you can help correct that. When we always want to outsource the responsibility of kickstarting the prosecution of a breach of both the law, Electoral Act, Constitution, and we say, somebody, the regulator has to go there. Are we not giving the security agencies comfort to derelict in their responsibilities?
Not necessarily. I should say this. The law enforcement agencies have their hands full. That's one. Two, we have not even brought them we have not built their capacity to be able to know when an infraction has been committed and they should move in to investigate or to arrest. Then there is also the issue of big manism. So if it's the ruling party, you will be circumspect to go and pick that kind of chieftain because you know you could lose your job.
And if it's opposition also, you have the problem of persecution.
And if it's opposition elements will say, oh, is it because we are not in power? If ABC is doing it, why not start with them? So, and this cuts across. So I have built capacity of different stakeholders in the electoral process. I recall that ahead of 2019, Professor Kari invited me to join a team of resource persons that build the capacity of police officers at Rockville Hotel here in Abuja. And I was asked to speak on campaign finance and all of this. And in fact, the pedestrian issue we treated in that was even issue of vote buying. And, how the law has criminalized it and what should be the role of police. And when it was question and answer, the policemen told me, Oga Jide, we know these things, but our superior is the problem. If we make this arrest now, it's a phone call. They will just say, release that suspect. Look at what happened in Kogi. Pre-filled election result sheets. Yes. That was all over. And INEC told us that they have the names of those who were involved and they were going to be investigated and prosecuted. That was November 11 last year. But Supreme Court just endorsed that election last Thursday. And not only that, INEC is washing his hands off and said, look, I'm not the police. The police were supposed to effect the arrest, investigate, and pass the case files to us. We have not seen those case files. So it's buck passing. And you are the one that usually use this phrase that whoever's head is used to crack coconut will not live to eat out of it. Absolutely. So discretion is always the better part of valor. You know what is right, but does the system want you to work the way you should work?
So what are the recommendations?
The recommendations basically is to break that culture of impunity. We have seen time and again, even in areas that is not just about campaign finance, we have seen situations where even for other electoral offenses, somebody will as the examples, Atana Center came out very strongly, just like KDI. Atana Center also investigated the election of Kogi, Bayelsa, and Nimu. And just last Sunday, I think, who was the head of Atana Center? Osita Chidoka, from a FRSC boss. And he came on Channels TV and broke down statistically the kind of fraud that took place in those 3 states by key stakeholders and gave a verdict. Of course, no lawyer will be able to use that because they filed their cases long before them. But what was very instructive was that there were names to those who perpetrated those electoral fraud, and none of them have been prosecuted.
So I don't want
to. So the issue is about breaking that culture of impunity. Who will bail the cat? Who is that person? Is it INEC chairman that will put his job on the line and said, I want, just go and meet Inspector General of Police?
We both know, Jide, that people don't walk to jail.
No. This is what I'm saying.
No, that's the. Let me just make this. For instance, the political parties who are in the contest have agents. That's the idea. They should have agents, and you know better than I the work of those agents.
Yeah.
Part of what they should report to their parties is the fraud that happened at the polling unit, and then they can get all of that together and use it to either ask for review according to the Electoral Act or proceed to court. But I don't know whether it's just us or how we frame these things. When will the parties take responsibility?
So the issue in truth is that parties sometimes attempt to take responsibility, but the system also frustrates them. I know, for instance, the case in Imo, the Labour Party candidates, the PDP candidates were on INEC to provide them with materials within the time frame that the law permits so that they can file their petitions. And it was quite frustrating at the state level to access those documents. Okay, and you know, this is part of the problem. You know, in election dispute resolution, you don't make sweeping statements. He who alleges must prove. It's a criminal allegation. And you have to prove, not just by saying the entire world or the entire state. You have to start polling unit by polling unit.
And you have party agents
in
those polling units.
No, wait. That's even a comma. There is a question on that. Did you see INEC's release that only in about 56% of polling units did political parties submit names of agents for Edo?
Why are we not calling them out?
So no, that's where it starts. So if you are contesting election and you refuse to submit names of party agents, and then on the election day you go and print bogus badges and give to some people to go and
citizen observers.
You know, it doesn't work that way. So the point is, the parties themselves are for sale. Some of them, you understand, they are in the contest not because they want to win, but they are looking for buyer.
Jide, you've traveled extensively. What are what I don't like to use that word, is the best practices.
The good practices.
The good practices that you have seen in helping us shape our campaign finance efforts, in terms of regulation, in terms of sanctions, in terms of we are stretching to
my experience, I've been to Uganda, Egypt, US, Ghana to observe elections, and each jurisdictions have different laws. Some don't have campaign finance ceiling, some have just limited threshold. But what I have seen across Africa is that these campaign finance regulations are observed more in breach. The only country I've been to that seriously takes campaign finance issue to heart is America. And America, as you know, or for our listening or our audience, America has Federal Elections Commission that does not conduct election. Their own purpose of being established is to monitor campaign finance. And that's why whoever is giving a cent, a dollar, is recorded in a database that even you in Nigeria can access those databases. They have so institutionalized, and don't you remember that in US you can spend as much as you can as you raise, provided you do not breach the procedure for raising campaign finance. Yeah. So somebody gives you $5, it has to be documented and it has to be visible on your database. And any breach of campaign finance regulation is found out, and you can go in for it. I mean, we have seen Nicolas Sarkozy, former French president, going in for campaign finance fraud. We've seen former Prime Minister of Israel being jailed when he was mayor, for campaign finance fraud. We've seen a number of world leaders, even years after they have left office, where the system caught up with them.
They are brought back to
account. They are brought back to account. Even the Zuma in South Africa, it was related to campaign finance that made him, even after being president of South Africa, the spoils of office, some of the privilege he got from wealthy family businesses to support his campaign were brought to question, and he went to jail for it. But in Nigeria, the culture of impunity is what trumps every other consideration.
Absolutely.
Because our political leaders, they have this esprit de corps. And that's why every alteration of the law every alteration of the law, they always leave a loophole. They always leave loopholes to, okay, look at, we may come to that. Look at in the 2010 Electoral Act, they said maximum amount individual can give to a candidate is 1 million naira. In 2022, they say it's 50 million. So if I give you 50 million, I've not breached any law. But do I have the capacity to give 50 million? What do I do for a living? What is my tax liability to be able to give 50 million? Nobody queries that. But it may well be you that will give me the money to come and give you in the open.
Yes.
So, and then there is also this.
So we have an elite that is always subverting
the process. Let me also tell you
but
this.
There's a place
No. Let me say this before I forget.
Yeah.
There is what is called third-party funding. That is where many of the political elites hide. Because when you are computing campaign finance, you exempt what is spent by your party on you, by any other surrogate. So it's only what Ezenwa and Wagu spent that comes in the name.
Yeah.
But Ezenwa can give Jerry money in hundreds of millions to float a faceless group,
grassroots organization,
friends of Ezenwa, and then they will say we bought him the nomination form. Then they will say they will buy all the billboards in Abuja donated by friends. But he's the one funding the whole thing. But under the rules that is his friend, because they know that third party funding is not captured in law. That is why I said the loopholes. The lawmakers always leave those loopholes so that they don't get caught.
We'll be going for a short break. When we come back, I know you were part of the struggle for the Not Too Young to Run Act. Now, part of the challenge, the questions people were asking us is the young people don't have money. But when we come back,
not too poor to run.
we'll take on that.
Stay tuned to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We'll be back shortly with more on the path to a stronger democracy.
Are you ready for change? Join the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, for the Electoral Reform Hour. This program amplifies electoral reform campaigns and provides citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process.
I think what we should do and what we've been advocating for is to find a way to harmonize all the biometrics we have been doing in the country so that we have one. If you have your NIMSI card, for instance, you should be able to carry all the data, social security like it's done everywhere. So when you vote, everything about it is there.
My position is that the result, substantive, the election ends at the polling unit. Once the presiding officer, in the presence of polling agents, in the presence of security men, in the presence of all other stakeholders, including some of the people that voted, counted the scores of candidates and parties openly, entered the results into Form EC8A, and snapped it, that is the real result. And it is that goes into IREV.
Let's embark on the path to significant transformation and well-informed decision-making together. As the National Assembly, INEC and other stakeholders work towards improving our electoral process, you too can be part of the decision-making process by participating in the radio program.
We are on to Comrade Abdullah Mohammed. I'm calling for Bida Local Government Area Council of Niger State. I'm advocating to federal government or the member constituted to look into this electoral reform. That why should a member be in the house to speak the truth? At the end of the day, what we continue receiving or hearing is to suspend that member and to tell him to join any political party of his choice. Who then are we expecting to come and tell us the truth?
This is Brian Orator from Latte ID State. My idea is that INEC should stand firmly as an independent body. Secondly, the local government election should be conducted from the INEC, that's from the national level.
Remember, democracy is for the people. Together, we can make a difference. Let your voice be heard in the Electoral Reform Hour, where every opinion matters. PACA, making democracy work for the people.
Thanks for staying tuned. We are back with your favorite program, Electoral Reform Hour, on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
It is still the Electoral Reform Hour, and you can be part of the live program by sharing your comments via the social media platforms on X at PACA, PAACA.ng, with the hashtag at Electoral Reform Hour, and you can leave your questions and comments for us on Facebook via at PACA, PAACA, and our WhatsApp number 0816808344. The phone lines will be open soon. Please don't go away. Welcome back to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We're picking up from where we left on with Mr. Jide Ojo. I was talking about the young people, the marginalized groups, and how lack of money or funding can marginalize them in the electoral process. What's your experience? What do you know?
I think they are just not resourceful enough. If they are resourceful, there's something called social capital that you can turn. There is what is called culture of volunteerism. If you have very good goodwill, perhaps you are part of the student union movement. On campus, some people will spend millions to contest to be SUG president. But some people will not spend much because they have goodwill, they have good character, people respect them on campus, and people will volunteer to work for them. And I've seen that happen in my both graduate and postgraduate years, where underdogs ends up winning at student union elections.
Absolutely.
The same could happen with youth. Yes, what happens is that first, those who are privileged youth that could easily win election are children of the elite. So, if your father was a former governor, as with former governor of Oyo State, Alawa Akala, whose son is in House of Reps, former governor of Ogun State, Oshoba, whose son is House of Reps, former governor of Kaduna State, whose son is House of Reps. They come from a political dynasty. So they ride on the goodwill or the reputation of their fathers. But
good or bad reputation.
Whatever, I want to believe it's good reputation. Then we have had spouses who ride on the goodwill of their husbands. Our first lady in Lagos was 3-time senator of Lagos, I think Lagos Central or Lagos State. Then we have Mrs. Grace Folashade Bent, who also use the husbands, So there are also youth. No, you see, technology could be of great resource to youth that has vision, that knows what he's doing. What is crowdsourcing? Crowdsourcing is getting little funding from multiple sources. Was that not how Obama won in 2008? Was Obama a millionaire?
Obama does not cook food for his supporters.
Listen, no, he may not cook food for his supporters, but Obama was rated an underdog. He's a black man, and he wanted to break the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
So people most likely didn't give him a chance in a racist environment that he could make that mark. But people believe in his vision. And he was a youth. I think he was in his 40s. As at that time, maybe mid-40s like Bill Clinton. Now, what I'm saying is this. If you have very good reputation, you right from your youth. You remember that at the age of 20, 21, 22, people are graduating from universities. If while you were in the school, you belong to different volunteer groups. Maybe you are a member of the JC Club, you are a member of the Rotaract, you are a member of this and that, Boy Scout fellowships, and you are very strong. People can work as volunteers for you. People can also help you to mobilize funds. That's why no law has banned crowdsourcing.
I'm happy you are positive about.
No, I'm very positive. Crowdsourcing is your veritable. You can also do fundraiser. You can do a luncheon. You can do a dinner where people will donate to your cause. And the only thing is that there is a ceiling, Section 88, from Section 2 to 7, has placed a ceiling. If you are a presidential candidate, you can't raise more than your maximum expenditure should be 5 billion for a president, for a governor 1 billion, for a senator 100 million, for House of Reps 70 million, down the line.
People are asking for the removal of those ceilings.
I also believe so, because it doesn't follow logical sequence. Why did I say so? If you said a president should spend 5 billion,
how much does it cost to get
advert
from?
Wait, it's not even that. That is not my concern. If it follow logical sequence, you said a president a governor should spend 1 billion, and we have 36 states, and FCT, that's 37. What should ordinarily happen is that 1 billion in 37 places will make a logical sequence, logical sense. If you are a senatorial contestant and there are 3 senatorial districts in a state, then if 1 billion is the maximum for a governor, then you split that 1 billion into 3, and then that should be the amount. But you see, with the benefit of hindsight, people just forgot history. In 2002 Electoral Act, there was no ceiling. This whole ceiling thing came with 2006 Electoral Act up. What happened in 2002 Electoral Act is that the law says the maximum expenditure limit for a presidential candidate is the number of registered voters multiplied by 10 naira. So that gives you, so if the total voter registration is 97 million, 96 million, 10 naira in 97 million, that is what you are supposed to spend. But people disagree with that and say, you want to just open central bank to go and but you see, finding a balance is very, very difficult. But nevertheless, that's why I said Nigeria is one. In Uganda, there is no maximum limit you can spend. The law just tells you cannot take money from narcotics, you cannot take money from trafficking, you cannot take money from terrorism financing to spend on election. You get, because they don't want to deal with this whole technical issue of monitoring, because it's actually very difficult to monitor campaign finance successfully. And by the way, the Electoral Act is couched is the party that owns the responsibility to report on the campaign finance of their candidate. Not the candidate. However, what INEC has done in the last guideline they did was to now make candidate also to
vicariously liable,
to vicariously submit. But how many of them are observing that? It's more observing.
You can now join the conversation by calling 091 509 50910 0492 091 50910 483. I beg your pardon, 091 540 910 482 091 50910 483. You can also leave your questions and comments for us on our WhatsApp at 081 680 83424 and on X at paka.ng and Facebook at pakapaka, PAACA. We're expecting your calls. It's your program and it's Electoral Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Jide, we are going to be shifting from the conversation. My people say when you climb on top of the mahogany, you should take whatever you can. You don't know when next you are going to go up there. Having found you here now, let's get...
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Can I meet you?
Good evening. This is Abubakar Musa calling from Bida, Niger.
Abubakar, first caller, always.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Uncle Jide, thank you always for coming on board.
My pleasure.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, can you speak up?
Thank you very much for a wonderful. I have learned from your experience. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Move away from your TV.
Your radio.
The question I want to have, you talked about the issue of not too young to rule. And you talked about President Barack Obama. If you look at the personality in President Barack Obama, our youth in Nigeria, are they developing themselves to that extent? Because if you see President Barack Obama talking, his viewpoint, his analysis, even his opponents used to appreciate him. Because these are the reasons that make the likes of late General Colin Powell to support him, even though they did not belong to the same party. So our youth have a lot to do. Because if you look at it, look at our youth who are governors today. Look at what happened in Sokoto State. The governors are failing to provide security for their own people. So the issue of not too young to rule is very good, but our youth must be ready to prepare themselves for the challenges ahead. They must be ready to solve problems. They must be ready to come up with policies that will shape the nation's development. Thank you always, Uncle DJ, for your wonderful analysis.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you for coming. He's talking about capacity and competence and all that, but these are very subjective issues.
No, he's making sense, but the point is, we cannot use the same brush to start everybody. You know, it's wrong to stereotype every youth as being delinquent, as being useless, as being lacking in focus. There are very young people who are doing great things.
Let's take this call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Who are we on to?
My name is Danjuma Dari, calling from Bida, Niger State, Shaman Freedom Conversation.
Danjuma Dari. Niger people, you will get an award from me very soon.
I thank you for your guest. He said a two things, but when you mention some governor, at least you forget one governor that he saw is a governor of Sokoto State, and his father is senator. What I want to ask, that we say we are learning democracy from America. Is it how the America they move democracy in their country? And you talk about money for buying vote. How do we do when we Nigeria we cannot use money to buy vote? Because if you look at America, you can't give anybody money unless you bring your mission, what you want to do for the country. And how we Nigeria will be like that? I want to tell you, because every day, if I have chance to call, I say no masses no collect money with those things, because if you will collect money, nothing can go and we suffer. I want to give you a serious that we use 2027 so that we get right candidate to vote. Thank you. That's my two contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, see, I want us to go to a different place now, because we don't. This 1 hour for this program seems to be very short. How do you perceive the role of technology in modernizing our elections? I know your advocacy has shifted things. Sometimes we don't like to. We're uncharitable to ourselves, but I know that your advocacy has moved things from where, our collective advocacy has shifted things from where they are. But what more do you think needs to happen in terms of technology?
I think we just need to strengthen the technological infrastructure that have been put in place. Now INEC has been able to give us a database of voters. We have permanent voters cards, so the authentication of electorate is doable 100%. We have the BVAS that is also helping us to check electoral fraud or impersonation. Then we have, by law, uploading of results on the portal. And even all these accreditation of party agents, accreditation of observers are done. Their request is done through a portal, which means technology is also playing critical role. The only leg that is left for INEC to complete the circle is electronic voting. And we can't continually run away from electronic voting. South Africa just had its own election some months back. They use electronic voting. I know that there are doubts and fear by the citizenry about manipulations and all of that. But we can't run away from our own shadow. And Nigeria Bar Association just had its own election. Was it last month? And nobody left their office or their homes. They just they cast their ballot virtually, and an outcome that was adjudged credible came out. And this is about the third or the fourth election that Nigeria Bar Association is using electronic voting.
Aren't we comparing apples and oranges?
No, I'm telling you, and Nigeria Society of Engineers is using it. NBA was
97 million prospective voters.
No. What I'm telling you, listen. When I was in US in 2010, you have option of whether you want to use touchscreen or ballot, paper ballot. Those options are there. And we can go like that for another 1-2 electoral cycle before we go full-blown, because technology is not the silver bullet. It's just that for a system like ours, where there is a trust deficiency, maybe it will encourage youth to come out and vote. Look at what has happened. Why I said technology is not a silver bullet. Look at what happened in Brazil with the emergence of Lula da Silva in the last election in 2022, when he won and the opposition said the election was rigged. But they use electronic voting 100% in Brazil. In fact, India are one of the two biggest democracies that use electronic voting. The same thing in US, the 2020 election, which Donald Trump claims up to today that was stolen from him. So it's not the silver bullet, but it could help to increase voters' confidence in the process. But what I need INEC to do is to inspire people's confidence. For instance, with the drawbacks in the last off-cycle governorship election, and I wrote about this in my column in The Punch. I said, look, Mr. Chairman, invoke your power to review election results. There is a provision in the act.
Who comes? Somebody brings it for review now.
Yes, but there are, from what I learned, there are a number of candidates that wanted some review.
No, Abia was reviewed, Sokoto was reviewed, Enugu was reviewed, in Abuja.
But those are the general elections.
Yes.
I'm talking of off-cycle
elections.
Now, what I'm saying is that if that power of review, when politicians know that if they circumvent the process, they will not benefit, they will sit tight.
Hello, can we meet you? Welcome to Electoral.
Good evening, my coordinator. Good evening, my guest over there. People have spoken very well.
We have Mr. Jide Ojo.
Good evening.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, sir.
Good evening, everybody there on my panel there.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's Adam West trying to make small contribution here.
What's the name and
Adam
where are you
West
calling from?
From Niger.
My name is Adam West from Suleja.
From Suleja.
Okay.
Niger State.
Niger people are taking over.
Yes. You see, what happened is this. Then there's no way we cannot we can rule out expenses. But maybe if there's a way, electoral body or electoral empire can regulate the amount and make it a law. Although the law has been there, that you don't spend more than a particular amount. Are you with me?
We're with you. We're listening.
Yes. But for senators, for this, for that. But what about the talks that are being organized? But I have a friend who wanted to contest at a particular time. He has his money, he's a business person, and he has marked a particular amount for his campaign and his election. But the next thing they ask him is, do you have talks? Who account for that once? Because it depends on how much you're going to spend for the talks, to snatch paper, to snatch boxes, and to disrupt election if it's not going his way. These are the part of the things. These are part of the problem we are having in this electoral system.
Well, thank you very much. Those things are no longer to snatch ballot boxes outdated and all of that. Those who do that will lose their deposit. Thank you very much for your contribution.
I wish you well. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we're on a stretch home now, and I want to pack so many things together. Dr. Hussein, country director of CARE International, was here. Talked about diaspora voting. He brought an interesting dimension that if they want to vote, they should pay tax, and all of that. And so I'm thinking, what's your own on diaspora voting? There are clamor for people in correctional centers to also be allowed to vote. That agitation is welling up. But I know it's about expanding the democratic space. There's also talk about independent candidacy, all to just make sure that the constricted space is opened up more and more. So, like I said, I have you here today. Let me take the best that I can.
So, for me, a number of reforms that will expand the democratic space should be taken between now and 2027. Diaspora voting and out-of-country voting is long overdue. It's long overdue because even smaller African countries have been doing this. Niger Republic, Kenya, in August 2022 election that brought William Ruto, they had out-of-country voting. They have diaspora voting in 12 countries, the contiguous countries, and then in Germany, in UK, in Canada, and in US. So if Kenya can do it, if South Africa can do it, Nigeria should be able to do it. We are the giant of Africa. Whether they need to pay tax to be able to access that privilege is secondary. If that's what the law say, all well and good. But the most important thing is that we should know that we have a huge demography outside of this country that runs into millions of people. And every year
I'm sorry. If you can just take 30 seconds, that would be fine. Yes. Hello. Can you take 30 seconds?
Okay. My name is Ibrahim, orator for Latvia in Kwara State.
Good to hear from you.
Okay. In fact, the truth behind the matter is that, sir, honestly speaking, not too young to rule.
To run, not too young to run.
Okay. They have already where the cause of disobedience to the constituted law of the land, and also the adults. What do we need in Nigeria? If not, we are not going to have a free, fair election. We need to change our attitude. If we like, we should change this electoral law for million term. It will not work.
Thank you very much.
Those countries that we are compared Nigeria with now, they respect their rule of law. Thank you. I remain orator for Latvia State.
Thank you for calling in. Thank you. We appreciate your call.
So let me quickly learn on my thoughts.
In 30 seconds.
Yes.
Please.
So one thing is missing. Out of country voting, diaspora voting, welcome. But more importantly for me, in pecking order, number one is early voting. Early voting is, in fact, we need that like yesterday. While you and I, who are on election duty, the critical stakeholders who will not be able to vote because they are either going to vote, or we need them to be part of the process. So early voting provision, voting by prisoners who are not on death row, that is the caveat, who are not on death row. We need to amend the law to allow for that.
And then we can do a pilot.
We can do a pilot. We can do a pilot in Anambra next year, or in Ekiti, or even in 2026.
And FCT.
And FCT in the forthcoming FCT local council elections.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that we will see that will expand the democratic space for the marginalized group. Because I became marginalized group at election period. I've not been able to vote since 2015.
Thank you, Jide. Thank you so very much. I know we can have so much of you, and what I'm going to do is that I will find time to ambush you again to come if it's possible. Very special thanks to our guest Jide Ojo for joining us on the program today. Let's apologize. We apologize for the questions we could not take today, but the conversation will continue next week. And to our dear listener, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Electoral Reform Hour, brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Engineers today, I have just one engineer today, Onebuchi Nwawe, and the ICT personnel is Mohammed Sani. The studio manager is ever dependable Finehas Odueyo, and on the Hemba Ohin, and the supervisor is Husseina Akila MNI. I'm supported today by Grace Abu and Jeremiah Ume. My name is Ezenwawagu. Let's do this again next week. Thank you very much.